I started my new job at Will Rogers Airport. I say new job, but I was really just moved to a different airline and working in the same ramp agent position. Now, I have to tell you that I have a crippling fear of heights, and my least favorite part of being a ramp agent is when I have to climb in the cargo bin on a rear-loading plane because it's about 20 feet above the ground. This particular night was a strange mix of a few factors creating an uneasy feeling. The first ambient setting condition is it was raining, not just light raining, but pouring rain with a few scattered lightning flashes and random power surges. Every now and then we have dead bodies transported in the cargo bins. This was one of those occasions, and tonight was my lucky night apparently because my manager told me I was throwing this plane. Throwing meaning I was pulling the cargo out of the bin. It was the last plane for the night and wasn't very much cargo beside the body. My coworker John pulled the ramp loader to the plane and raised it up so I can walk up the conveyor belt to enter the bin. About 4 other coworkers come over with a baggage tug for the cargo. I say to everyone in a louder than normal tone because the rain was loudly smacking the metal shell of the airplane. I hope y'all are ready. I'm not trying to be in there all night. John laughed and said, "Don't worry about it. Maybe you can make a new friend in there." In reference to the body, I didn't think it was funny, but I chuckled and told him to shut up and let's get going. I climbed into the small and cramped space and sat in the bin as far from this human-sized white cardboard box as I could and pulled my phone out of my pocket to select a playlist to listen to while I throw the bin. I find a good one and I start working. The conveyor belt moves at a snail's pace and you have to wait until they scan each individual package, so I can't just throw them as fast as I want to get out of there. About 10 minutes into it, I'm getting closer and closer to this box and my music stops playing. I've had earbuds that short out when they get wet, so in the front of my mind I automatically assumed that rain somehow got on and I just needed to shake water out of them, but they were bone dry. I check Spotify to see if it was a glitch or problem with the app and I see I have an unread text. Did I get a notification and forgot in the midst of my rap-fueled baggage handling? When I get a message, it will tell you who it is from, but it won't display the message. You have to access them to read it. The message was from an unknown number, which was odd because very few people have my number to begin with. I clicked the notification to read the message and all it said was hi. I send a text back saying, hey, who is this? My phone displayed that whoever sent the message saw mine immediately after it's sent. I waited and no response. I started my playlist back up and got back to my job. Shortly after, a crash of thunder that was so loud the plane shook made me jump at first, but I quickly rationalized it and returned to work. I noticed the conveyor belt was no longer moving. I yelled to John, "What the hell is going on out there? Why did it stop?" John replied, "Damn thing ran out of gas. We're going to take this load of cargo to drop off while we get another loader over here. Sit tight." About 1 minute later it got cold, like I could see my breath cold. I wrote it off as just a cold front and reach over for some stranger's luggage to lean on while I wait. As I look over for a bag to grab, lighting went across the sky and I saw a quick flash of a little boy 11, maybe 12 years old, sitting on the white box, staring at me with this eerily happy smile and his head turned slightly to the side. My heart sunk and I froze, never taking my eyes off that box for what felt like hours. I was startled by the replacement conveyor belt starting up right next to the plane. I darted to the moving conveyor, crawling as fast as I could, trying to keep my balance and panic at the same time. I hit the ground and looked at John and said, "Nope, I'm done. You're going to have to go in there." I didn't want to explain exactly what I saw, but John knew something scared me shitless. He asked me, "What's wrong? Who was it?" I stuttered and walked away before I could say anything. Then I got a new text message notification that I heard loud and clear this time, a response from the unknown sender saying, "It's your new friend." I have been flying for just over a year now, but I remember this trip in particular because it was just so damn weird. It was my very first layover, and I was winding down after dinner by reading a bit and listening to music. About 10 minutes after tucking myself in, I start hearing something strange, and I just had this sudden tenseness and feelings of unease. I paused the music and sit up straight, straining to hear it. It was muffled crying, like a woman was standing outside my door softly sobbing her eyes out. She sounded like she'd been hurt, but not physically. More like she'd been hit by an emotional freight train. Being awkward and uncomfortable, I thought maybe the girl next door was going through a bad breakup or something, and I didn't want to invade her privacy or embarrass her, so I took the coward's way out. I turned the music back on and tried to ignore it. Turns out, she didn't want to be ignored. The crying just kept getting louder and more anguished, to the point that my earbuds just couldn't block it out. I honestly was scared she was going to hurt herself, so I decided that I needed to get my big girl pants on and go check it out before she did something dangerous. I steel my nerve and go next door and knock gently. A minute later, a girl a few years younger than me answers it, and she's fine. She is completely and totally normal, not upset, not crying, no puffy face, nothing. I'm confused, but now I have to know what the hell is going on, so I just say, I'm in the room next door and I thought I heard someone crying. Just wanted to make sure everything is okay. She is still baffled, but says maybe I heard the TV, because it's just her in there, but thanks for checking, that was nice. I agree with her about the TV, trying to shrug it off, but there is no way on God's green earth that SpongeBob was making that sobbing sound for over an hour. It felt like every hair on my body was sticking straight up. The worst part is that I didn't have another room next to me, so that girl was the only person near enough to be making those sounds. The hall was dead quiet, so I told myself that it was over, whatever it was, and I noped back to my room. I walked in, closed the door, and like a switch, I hear a sniffling sobbing in my room. I looked everywhere, couldn't find anyone, listened to the walls, wasn't coming from outside, so I hid under my blankets. It was very loud and even more miserable for the next hour or so, and it wasn't muffled at all anymore. I tried to play music and ignore it, but it wasn't really possible to ignore something like that. Just when I was about to say screw it and make a mad dash for the door, it came to a dead stop in the middle of a wail. Needless to say, I didn't sleep much that night. Navy carrier pilot here. My story is more about what I couldn't see. I joined a squadron on deployment near Guam for a couple months one time. It had been about 6 months since I had landed on a carrier, so I had to do a few day and night passes to get current again. My first night with them, the plan was for me to get 2 traps. We would come down as the first plane in the recovery, launch again, and come back in as the last plane in the recovery. Nothing crazy, we do it all the time to keep both pilots current. The only thing different is I would fly both passes. This night was overcast, so no moonlight made it through to the surface of the ocean, making it very dark when you descend through the clouds. It's also the middle of the ocean. It is so dark that you can't tell where the water ends and the sky starts. Not that it mattered though, because we were still in the clouds down at 1,200 feet. As we are coming down first in the conga line of aircraft on 2-minute intervals, we hear paddles. The pilots on the back of the ship who help guide you down say 99, the deck is moving. This means that the flight deck is pitching, rolling, and heaving with the ship's motion more than it usually does. This happens occasionally, and it's always a bit sketchy, but that's what paddles is there for. Anyway, as we are flying our needles down toward the ship, we pass 400 feet at about 1 mile and we're still in the clouds in the dark. We get to the normal handoff point between the approach controller and paddles at 3/4 mile. Approach says show you on and on, 3/4 mile, call the ball. This is the point where we would look outside and confirm that we see the lights on the ship that guide you in on the correct glide slope. In carrier aviation, if you can't see the ball or you don't know where you are on glide slope for some reason, you say "Clara," meaning clarify my position. At least that's what I always assumed it stood for, and Paddles will step in on the radio and give you some help. Well, in this case, we can't even see the ship, so we respond with "Clara ship." Paddles comes back with 601, taxi light on. That means they can't see us either, and they need us to turn the taxi light on so they know where we are. We turn the taxi light on, and Paddles says "Paddles contact" and continues to talk us down towards the deck. We're probably passing the 150 feet here. Eventually, we finally break out, and about 5 seconds later, we hit the deck and come to a stop. It was raining so hard we could barely see the taxi director on the deck. They taxi us to the bow catapults, and we shoot off into the darkness to do it again. Luckily, the weather cleared a bit and the deck steadied a bit for the second pass. That still remains the craziest thing I have done in an airplane.